Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And it's your boy Taco Bell Ronnie, and it's not looking good for Nick Diaz, who was arrested for domestic violence in Las Vegas. The UFC has issued a statement. We've got reports from TMZ. We've got sources from the Las Vegas PD speaking out. And it's not looking good for Nick Diaz if you listen to any of these reports. Now, one of Nick Diaz's homies has spoken out and said that the chick was crazy, and we all do know bitches be tripping. But allegedly, this is some crazy stalker chick that has been messing with Nick Diaz for multiple years now. They had a run-in with each other, but to be fair, that guy is very biased, you know what I'm saying. I did a report on that. It was like 30 minutes long. We covered a whole lot of shit, but I'm gonna put that up on Patreon because it was from Nick Diaz's one of his really good friends, and also it's conflicting the reports we're getting from the Metro PD and stuff like that. And so, to be fair to both sides here, you know, because my last video we didn't have all the details. We just heard there was someone named Nick Diaz arrested, but there was some, we didn't even know if it was for sure this Nick Diaz yet. So that was just, you know, like, yo, this is going on, you guys. I'll keep you guys updated. Well, on this one, I'm bringing you the facts. So, in that video, there was, like I said, it was from Nick Diaz's boy, so he was kind of biased, and it's conflicting the reports a little bit, but at the same time, it was a long video. We touched on a lot of things, you know, real life situations that could have happened, and also some real life situations that have happened, some personal stuff. So I'm not going to post that on YouTube because now I have this information, and I don't feel like that's the best thing to do. But if you do want to check that out, it will be over on Patreon. I'll put the link in the description for that if you're interested in that. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the facts here. And this was reported by Front Row Brian, and from his sources in the Las Vegas Metro PD. He was also one of the initial ones where I got this information from, that Nick Diaz was possibly arrested. But he also continued to say this. This is where it starts looking really weird. Front Row Brian said, from my Las Vegas Metro PD sources, some very disturbing details emerging regarding Nick Diaz. The victim has a broken hip. Nick allegedly choked her unconscious. He then fought the police, which is why 12 cars were sent, then fought COs inside of Clark County Detention Center. So they're making it sound like Nick Diaz was on some sort of cocaine rage. And you know, in my original thoughts, if you listen to that other 30-minute video I did, I was like, you know, this just didn't seem like Nick Diaz, because, you know, he's not a type of guy you might think that was on some type of roid rage, or he doesn't seem like a guy that just gets into situations like this. You see him on Snapchat and social media. He's at parties all the time. He's around drunk people all the time. And you would imagine if Nick Diaz was just out here causing trouble, or a troubled person like that, then he would be getting in more situations out there. You know, when a drunk guy comes up to him, or somebody fucking tests him in public, and he puts himself in these environments around these people who probably are gonna, you know, say some slick shit. You know, a drunk guy might walk up, might feel like testing himself against a UFC guy, might be a Conor McGregor fan. He's at the mercy of the public at a lot of times. If you follow Nick Diaz, he's at a lot of, you know, public events. So I say that to say it just seemed out of characteristic for Nick Diaz to be doing anything, you know, aggressing the situation. But that was the initial thought. Now we're getting reports that it's supposedly, and this is where you, if you listen to the other video or just check out Mighty Matt on Instagram, this is one of Nick Diaz's friends who came out and defended Nick Diaz, and he pointed out, yo, this is a crazy stalker chick we're talking about here. They've been in situations in the past, like, we've told Nick Diaz, like, him and her need to be separate, and they were separate, but they ran back into each other, and shit's looking crazy. I know it looks bad, but it's not true. Nick Diaz isn't that type of guy. He said, you know, and he's alluding to this chick being crazy, right? And that can be all fine and dandy, but if she is crazy and they have had situations in the past, then it's kind of on Nick Diaz if he had her back around. You know, you gotta cut them off if they're that crazy, and that's something I touched on in that subject. I'm not going to go too deep into that right here, but with that being said, that's also a guy that's biased, right? One of Nick Diaz's friends. Now, if you know anything about this alleged stalker chick that we're talking about here, this is a chick that, you know, I believe claimed she married Nick Diaz overnight at one point and was talking about channeling Nick Diaz's fame into her music career, if this is the same chick, which is looking like it is. But with that being said, at the same time, it doesn't look good anytime the cops show up and Nick Diaz, you know, if she was injured or anything like that. If you're a man and a woman, even if you're defending yourself in a domestic situation, if you're a guy and she comes and fucking at you with a knife, or she comes at you with throwing fucking metal shit, glass at you, she comes swinging at you, even if you're defending yourself, if you like deflect her and she falls and hurts her hip, it's gonna look bad when the cops get there. It don't matter if she was coming at you with a fucking knife and you just like, whoa, get the fuck away from me, and she falls and hits her fucking hip on the counter. It don't matter. It's gonna look bad if you're the guy. So with that being in mind, that's why you can't really deal with these crazy chicks all the time, even if you think you got the situation under control. Now when you add potential drugs and all of that into the mix, which it's, you know, rumors are coming out, that's even another story. So with that being said, this subject is a touchy subject, so we're going to continue, though. I got some more facts and details now. This isn't a fact. This is just sources that Nick Diaz, the victim, had a broken hip. We don't know if her hip is broken, but TMZ has came out with a report, and TMZ said that the victim does have a hip injury. Now, one other thing we have to touch on in this video is, if you see what Nick Diaz was arrested for, it's domestic battery by strangulation and domestic battery. Now, the difference between, you know, the difference between battery and assault, which I believe was also on Front Row Brian's Twitter, the main difference between battery charge and an assault charge is the actual presence of harm and the threat of harm. Someone can only be charged with battery if they have caused real physical harm to someone, while a person can be charged with assault if it's just a threat. So clearly the chick had some sort of injury, and that's why he was charged with battery instead of assault. Now that also, you know, is it's aligned with the TMZ reports, which say the woman accusing Nick Diaz of domestic violence claims the UFC star had been using cocaine. That's what sent him into a violent rage. This is according to law enforcement sources. The multiple sources connected to the case tell TMZ Sports Diaz's accuser claims she's been in an on-again, off-again sexual relationship with Nick Diaz for years, but it took a turn for the worse in the last few days because she claims Nick has been using cocaine. The woman told police Nick attacked her at a Las Vegas home Thursday night, slamming her on the ground and choking her by the neck. Cops were called to the home and found the alleged victim with red marks around her neck and eyes, and we are told the woman was transported to a nearby hospital where she was treated for multiple injuries. We're told the victim claimed she suffered a hip injury in the altercation with Diaz. Diaz, who was also at the home when cops arrived, was taken into custody and booked for battery, domestic violence, and domestic violence by strangulation. So, looks bad for Nick Diaz there. And then as far as when Nick Diaz got to the jail, there's some conflicting reports, because as you see in Front Row Brian's original tweet, said Nick Diaz allegedly also, he fought the police, which is why they had 12 cars, which is what he said, and then fought COs inside the jail, he's saying. Now, that has been conflicted, but at the same time, if you saw Nick Diaz was arrested, he was being held in a special cell for Code 5, which was unruly prisoners. Now, with that being said, Nick Diaz, maybe they put, you know, celebrities in those Code 5 cells. Who knows? But as far as what the Metro PD is saying, the Las Vegas PD, it's for unruly prisoners. So if Nick Diaz was in there being, you know, resisting arrest or not starting shit, but fighting COs, as this original tweet said, then it would make sense for him to be put in a Code 5 cell. Now, at the same time, it says, according to the arrest report, he was detained without incident. So there's some Metro PD sources telling Aaron Bronstetter that he was arrested without incident, but Front Row Brian's original sources were saying that he was fighting the police, which is why 12 cars were sent, and then he fought COs inside. So that's conflicting a little bit. We're not going to get the full truth, you know what I'm saying, as far as just from this video. We're going to have Nick Diaz. I did hear an update. He's out of jail, I believe, on bond or whatever. He's out right now. The UFC has released a statement on the situation. I believe, yeah, this is what they had to say. The UFC is aware of the recent arrest of middleweight athlete Nick Diaz. the organization does not tolerate domestic violence and requires all athletes to adhere to the UFC fighter conduct policy. Every athlete is deserving of due process, and the situation, as with any official allegations, will be duly reviewed and thoroughly investigated by an independent party. So we'll see what happens, you know, as far as the UFC is concerned. And but it's not looking good for Nick Diaz, his victim. And see, this is why I don't want to put his homie coming out and defending him on YouTube, because I feel like it's a little irresponsible at this point, because from what we were hearing from here, what Nick Diaz's homie is saying, and you can imagine he's biased. He starts his first message off saying, "I will always defend Nick Diaz." Not I'll always defend him, but he says some shit like, you know, Nick Diaz is my boy, and I'm always gonna have his back. So clearly he's gonna be biased in the situation. But he does go on to say that this chick is crazy. She's been stalking Nick Diaz for years. But he said he's been telling Nick Diaz, like, yo, he said this chick has threatened suicide in the past. She's tried to, you know, and not just that, but she's done shit like this in the past. And so he's making it sound like this chick, you know, is just completely crazy, and now Nick Diaz's character is being tarnished and stuff like that. But I didn't just talk about that in the video. I also talked about some personal stuff and stuff like that, which is why I'm going to keep it up over there on Patreon. But at the same time, he was saying that, you know, the hip injury shit is fake, you know, from Front Row Brian and stuff like that. But we saw he's arrested for battery, which means it wasn't just a threat. It was actually some sort of damage, as we saw in the fucking explanation for what battery is right here. It was actual presence of harm instead of the threat of harm. So just a little conflicting, but like I said, if you want to go check that out and see what Nick Diaz's homie had to say about this situation, you can check that out over on patreon.com/fulltimemma. But as far as this, it's not looking good for Nick Diaz. He was arrested. Now he's out. I'll keep you guys updated with any more information that I find. But this is me and my girl's like 6-7 year anniversary, so I probably won't be putting no more videos out today. Just saw Darren Till missed weight, and then saw the details on this, and I was like, ooh, I gotta cover that. So that being said, thanks for checking out this video. Let me know what you think about this craziness in the comments. Do you guys think that Nick Diaz is being set up here like he was against GSP, or do you think Nick Diaz might have just got a little out of hand with the crazy chick? Cops got called and it was just a bad situation, man. I don't know, man. I'm reserving judgment until we see due process, but let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out. And as always, thanks for checking out this video. If you want to join the notification gang, make sure you hit subscribe and also hit the bell next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. And if you want to help this channel reach its full potential, consider hitting the PayPal link in the description or going to patreon.com/fulltimemma and becoming a patron. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.